because it is so Jesus and the disciples. Jesus tells them exactly what's going to happen, and of course they don't understand. They take it off in a totally different direction, and Jesus ends up explaining it again, and they still don't get it. They start with this question, and I feel that it's a very real question. It's a legitimate thing for them to be wondering. They say, who will be greatest? Jesus, we followed you for 3 years. You keep talking about your kingdom. You keep talking about all of the great things that will take place in God's kingdom. Where do we fit? They're not interested just in these seats of power, just in sitting at the right hand and the left hand of the king and having this influence. I think legitimately, James and John are searching for security. They want to know what their future is with this man Jesus. They want to be assured that they will be remembered, that what they are doing matters. And I think that we ask similar questions. It might not be using the same words. We might not even mention these things out loud. But sometimes in the silence of our own minds, we ask similar questions. We make similar audacious demands for God. They come up and say, Jesus, I want to sit at your right hand and your left hand. We want these important seats. We want the best seats. We want people to know we are important. And some of the questions we ask are similar. I want the best seats. I want to matter. I want people to hear and understand my opinion. I want people to do what I say. I want a nice house. I want a comfortable salary. I want to live in a good neighborhood. I want my kids to go to good schools. I want my kids to be the top of their class. I want to drive a good, reliable automobile. I want. And we ask these questions, and the heart of them is the same. We're looking for security. We're looking for a future. We're wondering, Jesus, what's in it for me? Are we really that different from these disciples? Maybe we hear ourselves reflected in their words, and it's a reminder that maybe we shouldn't judge too quickly. Maybe when we hear the ridiculousness of their questions, we don't laugh too loudly, because we know we've asked them as well. Jesus presents them and presents us with what true greatness is. And for Jesus, true greatness is seen on the cross. Remember, just before Jesus is crucified, in John's Gospel, he washes the feet of his disciples, these guys that wore sandals every day, walked around in the desert, and let's face it, they were guys, so foot care was not high on their hygiene list. And yet Jesus washes their feet and says, I am a servant of you first. Jesus prays in the garden before his crucifixion, Lord, I don't want to go through with this, but not my will, but yours be done. And on the cross, Jesus shows us these two seats of power. On the right hand and on the left hand are crucified two common thieves. And one of them says, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And his reply is, truly I say to you, you will be with me today in paradise. That is actual greatness. Our goal then is not to have the best seats. Our main focus in life and in faith should be on serving like Jesus Christ. Because that is what changes the world. Look at everything Christ did, and it is his service. It is his servant's heart that changes the world. We ask these questions and say, God, I want to matter. God, I want to be remembered. God, I want to know what's in it for me in the future. And we realize that what really matters What really is remembered are those times that we've been privileged to serve. So I ask this: when will we stop? As a church and as individuals, when will we stop focusing on survival and be willing to risk the way of the cross? Because those are two very different things. When will we think, as a church, less on, well, we need to get more people here, we need to have the flashiest thing or the newest gimmick because that will get people in the door? And when will we focus more on going where Christ is calling us? When will we look for where Christ calls us to serve and to love? Because God's kingdom does not run on gimmicks. God's kingdom does not run on the trendiest or the most fun or the flashiest. God's kingdom runs on sacrificial servanthood. And this is tough for us as individuals. It's tough for us as a church. Because when we feel this unsecure, when we feel this uncertainty, like the disciples, we say, what's in it for me? What does the future hold? And we get scared. We begin to ask questions like the disciples. We say, where do I fit in this? Where am I in your kingdom, God? We all know fear is a motivator, right? But fear is not the best motivator. In fact, fear is a bad motivator because it's always reactionary. Fear does not reach out beyond itself in confidence. Fear throws up walls and says, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm staying. I'm hedging the bets, I'm shoring up the fortress, I'm not going out there. Fear is always reactionary. In verse 32, just before Jesus predicts his death again, just before our passage, the disciples are following Jesus, and it says of those who are walking ahead of him that they are amazed, and those who are following behind are afraid. Isn't that how it usually is? We're amazed and we're excited when we first begin our Christian journey, but then when we realize that it's about service, it's about sacrifice, it's about following Jesus in places that aren't comfortable, that might in fact be scary, that might lead to the cross, we become afraid. We're not sure if we can keep going down that path because Christ is not leading us in a triumphal entry. Christ is leading us as servants. We're told in 1 John that perfect love casts out fear. God's love is the source of our faith, and love and faith make us strong. Doing Christ's commands means we don't need to fear. It's freeing. And then we are free to serve. When we understand and experience God's love, we are freed from wondering about the future. We don't need to worry where we fit in the future because we know that God is working through us in the present. And that God is the one holding God's future with hope in front of us. So what if? What if we stopped being afraid? What if we trust Him? What if we serve? What if we love? What if we stopped trying to find security and instead followed Christ in the way of servanthood and discovered that the way of the cross is in fact God's way and God's power? Christ answers the deep question that the disciples had and that we have when we come. What is our future like with you? Where is our success with you, Jesus? And Jesus answers, not simply, but with compassion and hope and power. Jesus says, you will not always be driven by fear. You won't always need proof of security. You will be a faithful enough disciple. You will follow me. You will drink this cup. You will be baptized. You will even take up your cross. And you'll be okay. Your white-knuckle grip that you have will relax. And we're invited to take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. And say with Christ, not my will, but yours be done.